Magic mirror on the wall. Which is the crappiest gaming GPU of all? The GT710? Nah, it's kinda like shooting fish in a barrel. The GTX 1630? What am I, made of money? Pascal architecture, 2GB of VRAM, weak as a vegan kitten? That'll do. nVidia's Quadro P400 is a budget workstation card from 2017. It was made for accelerating SolidWorks and other boring stuff. From a CAD point of view, it's a cheap, small GTX 1050 Ti. From a gaming standpoint, it's lower than a GT 1030. It almost looks like the fabled, unreleased GT 1010. It has the API support to run almost every modern game, but despite that, it's certainly not intended for gaming. So, obviously, I bought one for gaming. Earlier in 2022, I looked at the P400 in my usual test suite of modern AAA and popular games. I'll stick a link at the end of this video if you want to check that one out, maybe if the game you'd hope to see isn't here, but suffice to say, the P400 didn't exactly do well. I also tested it out in Valorant along with the even weaker GT710 and the substantially better Quadro K1200. In that case, it did okay, playable enough for what it is, but more suited to 720 than 1080. In this video, I'm going to test this card out in a few games that, I hope, are more directly in its lane, which just happens to include some of the most popular games in the world, according to the Steam charts and viewer data from Twitch. I am an almost complete noob to Overwatch. I never intended to pay any money for it, so I guess turning it free to play for the sequel gained Blizzard at least one new player. As it turns out, I don't hate it. I also don't hate performance on the P400, which, at low settings and 66% resolution scaling, averaged a very acceptable 90 FPS, and stayed mostly above 60 for the duration of my testing. Sure, quality suffers a bit, and you might struggle with sniping, but this is a pretty impressive start. CSGO remains the most played game on Steam, proving just how popular masochism still is. I'm not here to kink shame anyone, but I'll try and grab these benchmarks as quickly as possible and then go have a shower. Frame rates here were just a little too inconsistent to call good, as a near 100 FPS average doesn't really indicate just how much of the game was actually spent below 60 FPS. I'm not one for playing these things at low resolutions if I can help it, but I honestly think it might be worth dropping to 900 just to lift the minimums a little. PUBG BG, so good they named it twice, was possibly my first Battle Royale experience. I put quite a few hours into it back in the day, but I think I'd forgotten just how fugly this game is, though being forced to run at 720 very low settings doesn't help. It might look slightly better than PUBG Mobile, but it's closer than it ought to be. Frame rates were okay, not great. Ideally a 60 FPS is what I was looking for, but the P400 couldn't deliver. Also, visibility at 720 very low is abysmal. I was playing a bot match, which is the only reason I lasted more than 5 minutes, but I could only see targets with at least a 4x scope. I'm always kind of surprised at the popularity of World of Tanks. Anyway, it wasn't exactly my first time playing, but it was the first time in a few years, and after dragging myself through the mandatory training, I immediately jumped into battle, overconfidently tried to steal a base all on my own, and got blown up like a punk. What didn't happen was any unpleasant drops in frame rate. Averages were above 50 with lows in the mid-30s, but it's a very, very slow-paced tactical game, and I don't think you'd particularly notice the occasional frame drop. If you were keen to get a higher frame rate, however, you could always drop to low and see 200 FPS. I don't think I've ever seen such a disparity between low and medium before. I had the choice of testing one of two arcs, and Lost Ark was the smaller download. I have a feeling that somewhere in here is a very good looking game, but dropping to low settings makes it look a lot more like a mobile game than I think it deserves. Of course, it's a good job it's pretty, because the voice acting's for shit, but I digress. In overland sections, frame rates hang around the mid to high 50s, but drop fairly often into the 30s. The dungeon section was significantly worse, lingering in the 40s. Dropping resolution further might help, but the game already looks like trash at low settings. Like many of the other games on this list, I've actually never played League before, and I can't say I'll be eager to return, but I didn't hate my experience. I don't know if I was missing something, as the only quality setting I saw was low spec mode, and it wasn't needed. At the default settings and 1080 resolution, the game runs at close to 190 FPS with lows of 130, which was pretty insane considering this card was made for CAD. I dare say FPS in later game battles will drop further than this, but still, I think the P400 should be able to handle it. I was kinda dreading returning to FIFA for the first time in over a decade. Well, I needn't have worried, because the damn thing didn't start. Couldn't see a reason why not, it just came up with the same error message whenever I tried to boot the game. Rather than waste time trying to fix a game I didn't particularly want to play, I took the excuse to move over to a real ball game. Rocket League didn't need nearly as much visual compromise as I'd feared to get above 60 FPS, able to maintain a good average at 1080 quality. Lows were pretty poor, but this is a signature of all the low-end display adapter type cards I've tried in this game. They can't handle effects or getting close to the ball, hence why the lows drop way below 30. For a better experience, you might want to try the performance preset. I'm a middle-aged man on the internet, which is bad enough, but now you're watching me play Minecraft, I think that might be the biggest reddest flag possible. This is the Java edition for what it's worth. I don't know the difference, but it's the one I get asked about most often. Good news, at least without plugins, this thing runs amazingly well. Granted, it doesn't seem like the kind of game that demands 100 plus FPS, but if you drop settings, the P400 could actually deliver that. At fancy settings with 16 chunks, it averages close to 90 FPS and only drops as low as the 50s. Breath of the Waifu is a game I've tested on integrated graphics before, so I knew this should at least work. You might want to put more time into optimizing than I did, however 1080 low could give a relatively playable 28 FPS. Dropping resolution to 900 should be enough to break a 30 average, and I think that will help the game feel a bit better, but it also might ruin the aesthetics for you, if you like that sort of thing. Somehow, despite rumours that it was a flash in the pandemic, Fall Guys is still more popular on Twitch than PUBG and World of Tanks. This is my first time playing and it seems fine. More of a party game than anything, but I could see myself playing this again. Locking at 1080 30 FPS shouldn't be a problem here. Medium quality saw a 42 FPS average and 31 FPS 1% lows, which is just fast enough that it shouldn't make the game any harder to play. I hope you enjoyed that. I don't know what it was. Review? Warning? There's not much chance anyone's out there buying these for gaming. It's more expensive than a lot of obviously decent GPUs and a few of the less obvious candidates. I guess if you find yourself in the office, your boss is passed out drunk on their desk again, and you're on the clock for a few more hours, you might want to use one of these to pass the time. Alright, that's stretching a bit, I know, but I wanted to make a quick video with this card before I flog it on eBay, and it helps me to pretend that what I make is actually useful. Anyway, thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.